The courtroom doors swing open and the air inside turns sharp. Wooden benches creak as people shift and find their places. Some are silent, some whisper in tight voices, and others try not to stare too long at the figures at the front of the room. Every eye eventually lands on the same man. Kody walks in, shoulders stiff, eyes darting across faces that once carried love, but now carry judgment. He scans the wives who sit together yet separate, united without him, their glances sharp enough to slice through whatever defense he thinks he has left. At his side sits Robyn, tissue already in her hand, her face flushed and damp before the trial even resumes. Across the gulf, Christine, Janelle, and Meri lean slightly toward one another like a fortress. They do not smile, they do not whisper, they do not even blink in his direction. Years of exhaustion, pain, and waiting have ended here, in a room where truth is no longer avoidable, where every deception will be dragged under light. The judge enters, robe flowing, tone measured. Order is called. The sound of the gavel hitting wood ricochets off the walls. For a moment, no one breathes. This is not a scene from television anymore. This is testimony, evidence, judgment. The entire family story, once branded as love and faith, stands now as something fractured, something chosen by one man at the expense of many. Every movement of his hands, every small twist of his lips, is now being examined with cold, steady eyes. The trial begins with opening statements, words that cut straight to the bone. The prosecutor moves with calm precision, his language spare, his intent clear. He explains to the jury and the crowded gallery that this is not a case of confusion or oversight, but one of deliberate control. Financial records have been secured. Contracts have been signed. Children have been harmed. The wives have testimonies that match, line by line. He says this case is not about religious freedom or marital choice. It is about betrayal and calculated misconduct. He lets the words hang in the air before walking back to his table. Kody avoids his gaze, tapping his fingers against the wood. His lawyer stands, offering an opening that feels rushed in comparison. He protests that the family has always been under pressure, that decisions were made out of chaos, not cruelty. He warns the jury not to let bitterness rewrite the past. He insists there was love, even in mistakes, but his voice does not carry the same gravity. And Robyn's quick dabs at her eyes do not alter the heaviness already set in motion. Would you believe love can coexist with betrayal? Or do the lies erase the love completely? The first testimony comes quickly. Christine rises, steady, deliberate, years of silence now channeled into this single walk toward the front. She places her hand on the Bible, swears to tell the truth, and then faces the jury with steel in her eyes. She speaks not like a victim, but like a woman who has seen too much. Her voice does not shake as she describes the moment she first realized financial accounts were drained, the day she opened a statement and saw numbers that did not make sense. She tells of finding invoices hidden in drawers, unexplained payments made in cash, and the sick certainty that the husband she trusted was planning a future without her. Christine pauses, her face tense with old grief that resurfaces in each word. She says the betrayal was not in the money itself, but in the deception. The contract, she reminds them, was not ignorance. It was meticulous intent. It was favoritism etched into permanent ink, securing Robyn while leaving everyone else unprotected. The courtroom is silent, the jurors leaning in, some lips pressed tight as they hear her words. Kody stares at the table during all of this, shifting papers though he is not reading them. His jaw clenches. Robyn half turns toward him, wanting to touch his hand, but his hand remains flat, fingers spread, refusing to let hers land there. Christine continues, her voice gathering strength. She says the betrayal was not only toward her, but toward the children, the ones who went without, because their father gave priority to another household. She names the mindset for what it was, favoritism strong enough to fracture everything they had promised each other. The prosecutor lets her words stand without addition, thanking her and stepping back. The defense lawyer rises, asking if Christine is speaking out of resentment, if her memory is colored by the separation and years of conflict. She does not blink at him. She says bitterness does not create contracts. Signatures do. Her words land hard, forcing even the lawyer to falter before abruptly ending his cross. The judge nods. Christine steps down, her face unreadable but her shoulders squared. Janelle is called next. Her entrance is quieter, her steps slower, but the strength in her frame is undeniable. Where Christine was fiery, Janelle is measured. She lays out details with chilling calm. She explains numbers, bank statements, receipts. She connects facts with no emotional embellishment, like an accountant revealing a theft that no one wanted exposed. She confirms that she was left in financial straits in moments where she should have had security, and she makes it plain that she believes this was not accident but design. Her calm tone makes the gallery stir. The contrast between her stillness and the weight of her words is striking. Every fact builds another wall around Kody. She cites line items from documents, inconsistencies between deposits and withdrawals, and she points directly to gaps that match with Christine's testimony. The gallery shifts again, the realization hitting harder. 2 wives, 2 voices, same story. Independent but consistent, confirming the same betrayal. The defense cross-examines again, pressing her about intent. Couldn't it have been confusion with such a large family and so many expenses? Janelle tilts her head slightly, and then responds simply. Confusion does not draft legal contracts. That's not a mistake. That's preparation. Her tone is flat, final, and the tension in the room sharpens in an instant. Janelle's clarity leaves no space for interpretation. When 2 people tell the same exact story of betrayal, do you believe it's bitterness or truth? Meri is called last among the wives. Her walk to the stand feels heavier. She clutches tissues in her hand before even reaching the chair. Her voice is quiet at first, but then breaks open with raw honesty. She does not speak of money alone. She speaks of nights waiting for a call that never came, holidays spent without explanation, plans that excluded her, whispered gatherings she was not invited to, phone calls that ended when she picked up. Her testimony is not numbers or contracts. It is the human damage. It is loneliness made unbearable. It is silence turned into evidence of betrayal. The gallery shifts uncomfortably, some wiping tears away as she describes the shrinking of her marriage, the way love slipped from language into absence. Then she points directly to what broke her finally, finding paperwork that cut her out of shared property. The cruelest part, she says, was realizing he had already taken steps to discard her long before ever looking her in the eye to say she mattered less. Her voice cracks, and for the first time the jury sees not strategy, not evidence, but heartbreak exposed before strangers. Kody glances up, expression pained, but the silence in the room does not let him shift it away. Robyn hides her face in tissues, shoulders shaking, but the other 3 wives sit together as her words fill the chamber. It is not loud, it is not fiery, it is not calm, it is broken. And broken is harder to defend against than any legal argument. The recess comes after her testimony. Jurors leave, standing slowly, eyes darting back at the family as if they know they are watching history, something devastating yet definitive. The wives huddle slightly, whispering low, emotions raw but united. Robyn stays pressed close to Kody, but his arms do not move to hold her. His focus is blank, distant, as though the words still echo louder than he can handle. The gallery resumes their soft murmurs. Reporters shuffle, and the gavel waits in silence. What happens next depends on the defense, on whether there is an argument strong enough to counter tears and documents and contracts drawn in ink. But another storm is coming, one that no one in this room is prepared to hear yet, because the next testimony will not come from a wife. It will come from a child. If a man's children take the stand against him, is there any defense he has left? The air has shifted. Everyone knows it. The wife's testimony was powerful, but what comes next grips the gallery in a way that feels different. This isn't about money or signatures anymore. It's about voices that were never supposed to be heard in a courtroom like this. When the judge announces that one of the Brown children will testify, whispers rush through the room. Some lean forward, eager to see which child will walk through the door. Others turn their heads in discomfort, uneasy about children being drawn into their father's trial. But there is no hesitation in Christine's eyes. There is no hesitation in Janelle's jaw, tight and determined. They know why this matters. The door opens, and a daughter steps inside. She cannot hide her nerves, her hands locked together, shoulders trembling as she approaches the stand. Even the court officers soften their tones, guiding her gently. The gallery falls silent again, hundreds of eyes following her every step. And then she raises her right hand. The oath is given. Her voice shakes as she promises to tell the truth. She sits, glances once at her mother, then at her father. That glance is quick, sharp, and it lands like a blade. The prosecutor stands by her side, holding no paper, asking nothing complicated. The first question is the simplest. Did she feel her father treated all of the children equally? Her pause is too long. Her throat tightens. She whispers through tears, "No." Shock ripples quietly through the room. Kody shifts in his seat. Robyn turns toward him, her mouth curved in a small grimace, whispering something that doesn't reach far enough. The judge calls the room to silence again. The daughter gathers herself, her voice still trembling, but her heart pressing forward with each word. She speaks about gifts given to some but not others, about time divided unevenly, about her father's presence in one home but absence in another. She tells of birthdays forgotten, promises broken, tears shed behind closed doors. Every word sinks into the walls of the courtroom. The jurors straighten in their chairs, their pens moving slower. This is not numbers or legal language. This is a daughter laying bare the ache of favoritism inside a family that once pretended to run on unity. Would you believe a father who claims love when his own child says they felt invisible? The prosecutor paces softly, allowing her pauses. He asks if her father ever explained the differences, if he ever told her why her family seemed less important. She stares at the floor and shakes her head. Then, after a beat, she says something that silences even the reporters. He didn't have to say it. "We knew. The sound is like glass breaking." Those two words, "we knew," hang in the air, carrying weight so heavy that the defense visibly shrinks. Kody leans forward, his hand pressed hard into his face, eyes hidden. Robyn whispers again, but he doesn't move. Christine wipes her eyes from the benches, but her strength does not waver. The jury is not looking at documents anymore. They are looking at heartbreak etched across a child's face. The prosecutor has no more questions. The defense hesitates before rising. His voice is polite, overly careful, as though anything harsher would collapse his case entirely. He asks if her memory could be shaped by her mother's words, if her testimony might be influenced. She shakes her head again. Her voice is stronger this time. "I don't need anyone to tell me how I felt." The defense falters. That is the end. She steps down, shoulders set straighter now than when she walked in. The gallery watches her leave, their whispers hushed with respect. Another witness is called. A son this time, taller, older, his stride deliberate. He is not trembling. His anger has carried him through fear already. His eyes fix on Kody before he even sits. His oath is sharp, firm, and his testimony harsher than before. He does not speak carefully like his sister. He speaks with the blunt edge of someone who has been waiting years to finally be heard. He states that his father was absent, that he manipulated relationships, that he raised his voice in anger that left scars no one could see. The gallery gasps. Some wives stiffen, and the defense shifts nervously. Kody shakes his head, muttering something under his breath, but the son does not break eye contact. He explains how holidays turned into battles, how attempts to visit were blocked, how affection was shown only when it benefited Kody's image. His words are louder, echoing, the kind the entire court has to absorb whether they want to or not. If your own child accused you of neglect, would there be any excuse strong enough to erase that truth? The prosecutor lets him speak, nearly uninterrupted, because each description lands harder than any question could guide. Finally, he asks the son one closing question. "What did you hope for from your father?" The son swallows, his throat tight, his fists clenched. "I didn't want money. I didn't want presents. I wanted him to stay, and he didn't." His voice cracks, but his eyes do not waver. The silence in that courtroom feels suffocating. Jurors stop writing. Spectators shift. Kody exhales, his hands rubbing slowly at his face like he wants to erase the moment entirely. Robyn leans forward, looking as if she is about to reach for him again, but hesitates when she sees his body closed in on itself. The defense again tries to intervene. They ask if perhaps expectations were high because the family was so large, if disappointment was natural in such a complicated household. The son glares, then answers, "Disappointment is when someone forgets a game. Betrayal is when they stop showing up at all." The lawyer shuts down his questions within moments. He knows each challenge makes the boy's voice stronger, not weaker. As the sun leaves the stand, the wives' faces reflect everything. Christine's tears glimmer. Janelle bites her lip, holding her jaw tight. Meri folds tissues into smaller squares, her shaking hands the only sign of her emotions. The children have spoken. The gallery murmurs quietly, caught not only in shock but in sorrow. The judge calls another recess. The gavel cracks like thunder. Everyone stands slowly, whispering yet again, the murmurs heavier than before. The wives pull together slightly, their eyes filled with pride and grief for their children. Robyn slumps back into her chair, tears streaming freely, tissues damp in her hand. Kody sits frozen, his body bent forward, elbows pressed against his knees, face hidden behind his palms. His image as a proud leader is shattered. What remains is a man shrinking under the weight of being called out by his own children. And the jury has now heard something that contracts and numbers cannot compete with. They have heard betrayal described with trembling tears and unwavering glances from those who once called him father. But the storm does not end here. Tomorrow more witnesses wait, not only wives, not only children, friends, outsiders, people who watched the cracks widen and who saw things the family never wanted spoken aloud. Their voices will bring a new dimension of truth, one that pulls this story out of private grievance and into undeniable betrayal. If the people outside a family confirm what the family says inside, does denial finally lose its power? The third day of testimony begins with a different kind of anticipation. The wives have spoken, the children have cried, and the courtroom has already felt shaken to its core. But what comes next is heavier, because the voices now entering are not bound by family loyalty. They are friends, colleagues, neighbors, even professionals who watched from the outside while secrets unfolded inside. These are people immune to Kody's charisma, people who are not clouded by vows or blood, and that makes them dangerous to his defense. The gallery hums with tension again. Reporters shuffle forward, their pens already in motion. The judge reminds the room of proper conduct as the gavel falls, but the order is brittle. It feels as though the smallest spark could ignite the entire room. And then the first witness is called. A longtime family friend steps forward, shoulders squared, gaze fixed on the microphone. His oath is firm, no hesitation. He begins with his experience, explaining years of visits, family dinners, trips where he saw the Browns functioning as one large, complicated unit. He says he admired their courage at first, admired the openness with which they shared their lives. But then his voice shifts, drops lower. He says he remembers the moment he knew something wasn't right. It was during a backyard gathering, years ago. He recalls Christine quietly asking him whether he had heard about a contract for Robyn. He didn't understand at first, thought it might have been rumor. But months later, he overheard conversations in hushed voices. He saw paperwork concealed and moved between locked drawers. He remembers the way Meri approached him privately, voice tight with fear, to ask if she was being cut out of property discussions. He hadn't wanted to believe it, but the signs mounted again and again. The prosecutor listens closely, letting his words build gravity. He asks directly, "Did you witness Kody favoring Robyn publicly?" The man nods, firm. He lists the trips Robyn received, the new furniture delivered to her household first, the debts covered for her children, while others waited months for help. His tone carries weight because he is not family. He is an outsider describing financial and emotional favoritism so obvious it cannot be ignored. The jurors reveal subtle shifts in their eyes, their posture. They are listening, and they believe him. The defense asks whether he is biased against Kody, whether he thinks bitterness altered his view. The man doesn't flinch. He answers sharply, "Bias doesn't purchase furniture. Bias doesn't sign contracts. Actions do." The room murmurs again as the defense sits down, defeated by his simple reply. When those outside a family can see the cracks, isn't it proof the damage was never hidden at all? The next witness is quieter, but even more disturbing. A financial advisor steps forward, called in years ago to review property deeds. He places his hand on the Bible, then sits rigid, no expression at all. His voice is calm, clinical, cutting straight through the silence. He lays out professional records, documents he reviewed, contracts notarized under Kody's name. He speaks about property that shifted hands, land parcels reassigned with signatures that excluded 3 of the wives. He recalls his shock when Meri asked why her name had vanished from the paperwork. He recalls realizing that 3 wives had lost their leverage on land they believed belonged to the family as a whole. Every line of his testimony confirms paper trails Christine had already exposed. His voice is free of emotion, and that makes it more convincing. He is not grieving. He is not resentful. He is factual, and that factual tone cuts like a scalpel. Robyn's face shatters again into tears. Meri weeps quietly into tissues. Christine grips her own arms like she is willing herself steady, and Kody sits motionless, eyes down, refusing to make contact with anyone at all. The defense asks if the advisor might have misunderstood, if such paperwork could have been temporary drafts. He flips through his notes, his voice steady. Temporary drafts are not notarized. They are not filed with the county. These were finalized transactions. The jury scribbles quickly. The defense's lips tighten as he ends the questioning early. If paperwork proves intent, does denial mean anything at all? The gallery buzzes louder now. Even those hesitant to blame Kody cannot deny what has been shown. Contracts, deeds, official filings, all pointing to his deliberate choices. Still, there is one more blow waiting, one that feels personal in a way none of these documents can prepare anyone for. The prosecutor announces the next witness. A family acquaintance. Someone who had been in the home many times. Someone who had spoken often with the wives and occasionally with the children. When she enters, the wives stiffen. This is someone who saw everything not through official records, but through conversations at kitchen tables and tears hidden from cameras. The room braces as she takes the oath. Her testimony turns the court from numbers back to human ache. She speaks about late-night calls from Christine, about Janelle crying once after realizing bills weren't being paid, about Meri privately begging for help to access mortgage documents she had been excluded from. She describes children running to her during visits, whispering that Dad only goes to Robyn's now. She remembers watching Meri leave an event early, defeated, after learning Robyn's household had received financial help denied to hers. Her words come like waves, washing over the gallery with an uncomfortable familiarity. These betrayals weren't abstract. They spilled out into every corner, witnessed not only by family, but by outsiders who had no reason to lie. Her testimony leaves hearts raw, more painful because it is confirmation from beyond their walls. The defense tries to undercut her. They ask if she exaggerated details or if her closeness to Christine influenced her view. She speaks firmly. I was there. I heard it. I saw it. And I will not pretend it didn't happen. Her voice shakes toward the end, but the conviction stands. The wives nod slowly, their faces pained but supported by the truth unfolding. Robyn hides her face again, tissues pressed tightly in hand. Kody remains silent, lips pressed together, body restless but bound by the moment. The judge watches, face unreadable, though the pressure in the room grows unbearable. Testimonies from outsiders finish the day, each one chipping away at what defense remains. Each one anchoring the story Christine, Janelle, and Meri already told. And the jurors by now have seen too many overlapping truths to ignore. They have witnessed tears, seen paper contracts, heard professionals confirm details, and listened to outsiders frame betrayal as plain fact. The judge calls the day to a close. The gavel falls harder, echoing into the heavy silence. People rise, some speaking, some walking out wordlessly, visibly shaken. But as the wives gather their bags, eyes forward, Kody remains still, hollow against the bench. For the first time in years, perhaps decades, words fail him, because tomorrow, the storm will not wait for numbers or friends. Tomorrow is his turn to speak, and his voice must stand against everything that has already broken before it. If you were accused by everyone you loved, how would you defend yourself when silence has already spoken louder? The morning begins with silence heavier than the day before. The benches are full again, yet the room feels emptied of sound. People know what is coming. There will be no more wives, no more outside witnesses, no more children choking on their testimony. Today belongs to Kody, the man who once called himself the leader of this family, the man accused by every voice that loved him. When his name is called, every eye lifts. He moves with stiffness, shoulders drawn back stiffly as if still trying to perform strength. But his face betrays him. His eyes are dull, movements jerky, his mouth held too tight. He raises his right hand, swears the oath, then sits down with a hard exhale as though the air itself is resisting him. For the first time in this entire trial, he has nowhere to hide. The prosecutor stands slowly, his expression steady. He does not waste words. He begins with the evidence already shown, placing the contract on the desk in front of Kody. He points to the signature line, plain as day. "Is this your handwriting?" Kody hesitates. His mouth opens, then closes. The pause stretches long enough to make the gallery stir. Finally, he nods. "Yes," the confirmation hangs in the air like a sentence. The prosecutor asks the next question. "And your intent in signing this document was to secure protection for Robyn and her children, leaving the others at risk. Correct?" Kody shifts in his chair, his voice trembling for the first time. "No, it wasn't. It wasn't like that. I was scared. I thought the family would fall apart, and I had to protect something." His words ring unsteady, excuses shaped like apologies, yet void of conviction. He tries to defend, repeating phrases about fear and chaos, about pressure building for years. But his voice loses power with each sentence. The prosecutor only presses further. Is fear the same as intent? Is fear enough to justify leaving wives and children vulnerable, while one wife was secured by contract? Kody's words falter. He stares at the paper again, jaw trembling, lips pressed thin, then chokes out. "I didn't know what else to do." The gallery stiffens, everyone listening as the silence behind his words grows louder than the sentences themselves. Do you hear fear in those words? Or do you hear guilt struggling to find excuses? The defense rises, trying desperately to redirect. They push Kody to explain the pressures of leading a family with many members, the complications of finances, the chaos of public exposure. They let him speak freely, hoping his voice will rebuild what evidence destroyed. Kody speaks longer now, more fluidly, trying to reclaim control of his own story. He lists the sacrifices he made, the hardships of carrying the family in front of television cameras, the stress of providing for more children than most people could imagine. His tone sharpens, anger curling around his words, his hands lifting and shaking in sync with each point. His voice rises. "I gave everything to this family, and now every mistake I made is being turned into betrayal. But none of you know what it's like to be me." The gallery reacts audibly, whispers and gasps breaking the stillness. The judge strikes the gavel, reminding everyone to remain quiet. But the words cannot be unsaid. His defense begins to crumble, not because of documents now, but because of his own pride, his own anger. The prosecutor waits for him to finish, then calmly asks, "What about your children saying they felt abandoned? Were they mistaken?" Kody freezes. For a second his voice fails, but then he lashes out, "They don't see everything. They don't understand what I was facing." The atmosphere sours instantly. The jurors shift in discomfort, their faces mirroring disapproval he cannot deflect. Christine lowers her head, shielding her tears. Janelle watches coldly, her jaw locked. Meri stares forward, not blinking, her knuckles white against the tissues still gripped in her hand. Robyn presses her face into her palms, rocking slightly, sobbing without words. And the man on the stand seems smaller, despite his raised voice. When excuses blame the ones you hurt, does it make the wound deeper instead of healing it? The cross-examination continues. The prosecutor asks about the property deeds. Kody sighs heavily, mutters about complicated paperwork, insists it was temporary. Then he is shown notarized copies with his same signature. The contradiction is exposed in real time. His denial collapses with a soft thud, leaving him in a silence that even his lawyer cannot fill. The jurors' faces harden. Finally, the judge allows Kody to speak directly, knowing his words will be weighed as testimony and personal statement. He rises slowly, standing in the witness box as if forced against himself. His body hunched, voice hoarse, he begins to stumble through a confession. He admits mistakes. He admits fear. He admits he tried to hold tighter when the family began slipping away. But his words are uneven. They do not land as apology. They land as admission of weakness. And one by one, the faces before him reflect the gravity of his collapse. Christine's jaw tightens as she holds herself like steel. Janelle's eyes bore into him with quiet condemnation. Meri weeps softly in her seat, tissues torn apart in her shaking hands. Robyn hides in sorrow, unable to bridge the distance between them anymore. Kody's closing words on the stand are nearly whispered. "I never meant to hurt anyone." But the silence that follows feels heavier than any denial before. Because what makes betrayal unbearable is that intent no longer matters once the damage is done. The courtroom exhales as he steps down. His lawyer's face is drained, already knowing how the jurors received everything they just heard. Kody slumps into his chair, face buried again in his hand. The man who once sought control is no longer in control of anything at all. The judge calls another recess. People rush out to the hallways to whisper their shock into recording devices and cameras. Reporters text, type, record their impressions. The wives sit together still as stone, united regardless of their pain. Robyn leans away from Kody, tissues clenched but body distant. And Kody himself does not move at all, as if he already senses what verdict waits for him tomorrow. But the trial is not yet complete. Closing arguments wait. The lawyers will take everything that has been said, everything that has been felt, and sharpen it into final words for the jury. And once those words land, there will be no undoing any of it. If the last words you ever speak in your defense fall on ears already closed, do they matter anymore? The next morning, the air in the courtroom feels charged, thick with finality. No one speaks as they shuffle into their seats. Jurors wear expressions carved in stone, braced for the last words they will hear before retreating to deliberate. The wives sit in their familiar constellation. Christine steady, Janelle calm but firm, Meri fragile but resolute, and Robyn folded inward, eyes red and tissues clutched. Kody stares blankly ahead, his face drawn, shoulders sagging in defeat before the verdict is even spoken. The gavel falls. "Closing arguments," the judge announces, his tone echoing across the room. All motion stops. This is the last chance for persuasion, the final act before judgment. Every word spoken now will be magnified and burned into memory. The prosecutor rises first. His steps are slow, controlled. When he begins, his voice is deliberate and unyielding. He reminds the jury of the evidence, but he does not bury them in numbers. Instead, he tells a story they already know, but sharper, harsher, inescapable. He lays out the pattern: accounts drained, property shifted, children neglected, favoritism signed into permanence. He raises the contract high, shaking it once for the gallery to see. This, he says, is not confusion. This is not chaos. This is intent. A contract is a choice, and this choice tore a family apart. His words land heavy, each sentence a nail into Kody's broken defense. He references Christine's strength, Janelle's clarity, Meri's tears, and the children's voices that no jury could ever forget. He points to the professionals, the neighbors, the concrete records. He tells them plainly that what they've seen is not an accident of too many children or too much responsibility. It is betrayal, calculated and deliberate. Then he lowers his tone, speaking directly into the silence. This case is not about marriage. It is not about faith. It is about deception so deep it stole trust from an entire family. Do not excuse intent with fear. Do not excuse betrayal with excuses. Today, deliver justice. Because if betrayal written in ink brings no consequence, then loyalty means nothing. The room erupts in quiet movement, the gallery nodding, whispers echoing. The wives glance at one another, solemn, steady, vindicated. The prosecutor steps back, his closing words finished like a blade pressed to a throat. When every piece points in the same direction, can you deny betrayal when it stares back at you in ink? The defense rises, already strained. His voice is faster, thinner. He speaks of pressure, circumstances, the impossible position of one man trying to lead too many lives at once. He argues that favoritism was perception, that bitterness transformed small mistakes into grand betrayals. He describes Kody not as a schemer, but as a drowning man reaching desperately for one branch to hold on to, protecting what he feared losing most. The words feel rushed, fragile. The jurors' faces do not change. Their pencils move slower, some still, some watching the lawyer with flat eyes. He stammers once, tries to recover by insisting that bitterness drove the wives here, that their testimonies are colored by separation. But the memory of the tears, the paper, the child's trembling voice lingers heavier than anything he says now. He ends quickly, his last words a plea that intent be judged softer than outcome. The court falls silent again. The defense sits, Kody's chin is pressed low, his hands folded in front of his mouth, eyes lost, body still. Nobody speaks. The gavel falls again. Jury will deliberate. The jury files out, doors closing behind them. The pause stretches longer than anyone expected. People stand, whisper, pace in the hallways. The wives sit frozen, their eyes fixed forward. Robyn curls into herself, sobbing, tissues shaking in her palms. Reporters elbow their way toward exits, leaking fragments of tension into the streets beyond these walls. Hours pass. The courthouse clock ticks slow, heavy, mocking. Families gather tight, strangers shift uncomfortably. The silence grows unbearable. And then the jurors return. The judge calls for order. The gallery rises. Everyone in the room feels suspended in a single breath. Jurors take their seats, the foreperson holding the paper high. His voice is steady. We, the jury, find that Kody Brown did knowingly misuse family funds, conceal financial documents, and prioritize one wife with intent, leaving others vulnerable. These actions constitute misconduct. His defenses are insufficient. Gasps break out across the room. Some cry, some sigh in relief. The wives clutch each other. Janelle's hand gripping Christine's back, Meri folding into their embrace. Christine's face is steel, tears streaking but chin held high. Robyn collapses into sobs, trembling so violently she shakes her tissues apart. Kody slumps forward, his elbows to the desk, face buried in his hands. The strong patriarch, the proud leader, gone, leaving only a hollow shell of a man wrecked by his own hand. When the verdict falls, does it break the guilty, or does it free the betrayed? The gavel slams the final time. Judgment delivered. The case is ended. But in this room where betrayal has been laid bare, no one mistake can be erased by any sound of wood on wood. Verdicts close cases. They never close wounds. And the story of this family has now left the courtroom and belongs to everyone listening. The gallery bursts. Reporters rush. Cameras flash. Voices spill into the hallways, into the streets, into every corner where once, years ago, this family projected love and unity on television screens across the nation. That illusion is broken forever. What remains is truth, ugly and painful, but truth nonetheless. Christine gathers her bag, rises with defiance, and walks out head high. Janelle follows in quiet resolve. Meri lingers, looks back one last time, then turns away in steady steps. Robyn does not rise, trapped in her grief, unsure whether to stay or follow. And Kody Brown does not move. He remains bent, hollow, consumed by the soundless wreckage of a life in ruin. And here's where you come in. Because while a judge has given his ruling, and while a jury has spoken his guilt, the question that lingers is not legal but personal. If a man betrays his wives, his children, and his promises, should he ever be forgiven? Or are some contracts too destructive to erase? Comment your judgment below. The gavel's echo is gone, yet the sound refuses to leave the room. People still hear it in their own chests as they pour out into the courthouse corridors. Reporters run like predators let loose, shoving cameras forward, drilling questions into anyone who looks connected. Flashbulbs burn the edges of vision, recorders shoved upward into faces streaked with tears. Christine is the first to appear, her posture stiff, her face set. Reporters hurl questions at her one after another. Do you feel vindicated? What does justice mean to you now? Are you satisfied with the verdict? She scans the crowd but does not answer, lifting her chin and walking steadily through the frenzy. Her eyes cut straight forward, her steps precise, as if she refuses to collapse this time. She knows the questions will spread her silence further than any quote could. Janelle comes next. Her energy is different, calmer but no softer. She stops at one point, turning toward a cluster of reporters. Her jaw is tight, but her words are measured. We did this because lies should never stand unchallenged. What comes next is rebuilding. Nothing else matters. The air tightens in her wake. Reporters press in closer, scribbling down each word as if it carries something final. But she doesn't say more. She too passes through, eyes fixed forward toward whatever comes next. Then Meri emerges. There is no steel or calm about her. She weeps into tissues, clinging to the small folded scraps she has clutched through the entire trial. Lights hit her face. Questions decimate her privacy, people shouting for sound bites she cannot control. She shakes her head, unable to form words, and Janelle slips an arm around her shoulder to guide her away, shielding her like a sister. The image burns its way into every lens, the wives, fractured for years, now united in their departure. And then comes Robyn, her expression shredded, her hands trembling. She steps into the light and collapses under its weight. Cameras capture every sob. Questions fly past her. Did you know about the contract? Do you still stand by Kody? Do you blame the other wives? Each sentence cuts her lower. She tries to shield her face but cannot. She whispers once brokenly, "I don't know what to do anymore." Then she disappears into the car waiting at the curb, shaking so hard she can hardly close the door behind her. When betrayal cracks a family apart, who suffers more? The ones who leave, or the one who stays tethered to a broken promise? The last figure to leave is Kody. His steps are slow, body hunched, hands stuffed into his pockets like he hopes to fold into himself. Reporters swarm, voices louder than they were with anyone else. Are you guilty in your own eyes? Do you regret it? Do you feel abandoned? He keeps his eyes on the ground, shoving past bodies, refusing to answer. Someone shouts, "What about the children?" And his shoulders twitch, his jaw tightening. But he does not break his silence. He climbs into a separate car, slamming the door, the weight of every camera burning down as the vehicle rolls away. Inside the courtroom, where silence has finally fallen, the judge sits alone at the bench for a moment more. He exhales, clears his throat, and closes the file. His part of the story is finished. Justice has been written down in words that cannot be taken back. But outside, justice does not silence heartbreak. It cannot reassemble what is broken. It cannot erase tears shed or years lost. Justice brings verdicts. It never brings closure. As hours pass, the news spreads far and wide. Every website, every broadcast leads with the Brown trial. Headlines scream betrayal. Clips of Christine leaving the courthouse circulate. Memes erupt online, sound bites repeating endlessly. Some cheer, celebrating vindication. Some weep in sympathy for the children. Others cut the footage into jokes stripped of compassion. The world consumes the destruction of this family like entertainment, when for them, it was survival. Christine watches some of it. She sits in her living room, arms wrapped around herself, her phone lighting up every minute. Messages from strangers pour in, declaring solidarity, apologizing for her pain, praising her strength. She reads a few, then tosses the screen aside, because none of the words bring back the years she lost to lies. She closes her eyes and breathes. Janelle handles it differently. She sits upright at her table, laptop open, scrolling through reports and statements. Her jaw tightens as she reads. As she sees the children's faces plastered across headlines, she sends them messages, one by one, telling them to stay calm, reminding them they already did the bravest thing by speaking truth out loud. She knows people will twist this story, but she silently promises herself her children will know their voices mattered. Meri spends the night in silence. The tissues beside her bed form a tower of shredded pieces. She keeps whispering into the air, words too fragile to replay. Sometimes she speaks Kody's name. Sometimes she asks why she stayed as long as she did. Her grief cuts sharp, her sorrow heavy. Yet even now, even after betrayal was dug up and proven, part of her heart aches for what was lost. And Robyn sits in her own home, blinds drawn, tissues stacked on every surface. She paces, collapses, rises again, her thoughts spinning endlessly. She was chosen, protected, secured above all others, but at the cost of everything else. And the family she clung to is shattered by it. She whispers prayers. She begs into silence, but no answer comes. Do you think those who benefit from betrayal are victims too? Or do they share the weight of responsibility? As for Kody, reports track him to a single home. Cameras stationed outside the driveway catch glimpses. The man hunched at his table inside, no family surrounding him now. No children in the yard, no wives by his side, no illusion of unity to shield him. He is alone. His phone buzzes endlessly, but he ignores it. His eyes remain locked downward. Pride has withered into despair. The man who once built a family on declarations of love is trapped inside the ruins of his own decisions. The trial may have ended, but the story belongs now not to the court, not to headlines, but to the people who survived it. The wives who walked away, piecing together new lives, the children who held nothing back, the one wife left behind in sorrow, and the father who lost them all. But endings rarely end clean, and as the weeks will unfold, The human cost of this verdict will spread. Friendships will fracture under pressure. The children will argue about forgiveness. Rumors will circle back through the family, igniting fresh wounds. And soon, one wife's voice will return. Not as testimony, but as revelation. The next storm is not paper contracts or courthouse gavel strikes. It is confession, raw and unguarded, whispered by someone who held back the darkest truth until now. If one more secret is revealed after the verdict, do you think forgiveness becomes impossible forever? Weeks have passed since the verdict, but peace has not come. The courtroom doors closed, yet the echoes of testimony have ricocheted through every corner of their lives. The Browns are no longer a family as they once claimed, but fragments, scattered and reshaping themselves in separate spaces. Christine stands firm in her independence. Janelle keeps to practicality, focusing on what comes next. Meri drifts in her quiet grief. Robyn lives in tears, her foundation shattered. And Kody remains hunched in the wreckage of his own pride, alone. But just as the world begins to move on, a new whisper rises. At first, it feels like rumor. Then it takes form. Someone says the wives have not told everything. That deeper betrayal lies buried still. Too volatile to spill under oath. Too poisonous to expose when children were already hurting. But suppressed secrets never stay hidden forever. And now, one is crawling into the light. The revelation comes not in court, but in private. A recording emerges, leaked from an old meeting Kody once held behind closed doors with Robyn. In it, his voice cuts sharp. He speaks of preparing for collapse long before anyone knew it. He says if the marriages falter, at least Robyn and I will survive. The words hit like explosions. This is no longer a matter of documents and deeds. This is intent spoken aloud in his own voice, behind his family's back. The wives hear the recording separately, but their reactions overlap in pain. Christine closes her eyes, her hands clutching her stomach as if struck. Janelle throws her phone down, shaking her head in raw disbelief, even though part of her always expected this level of favoritism. Meri collapses again into tears, her tissues endless, her whispers repeating one thing. All those years. He already knew. Robyn hears it too. Her sobs explode, sharper than before, because this secret ties her more deeply into betrayal than she can bear. On the recording, her own voice is there as well. She does not protest when he speaks of discarding the others. She murmurs softly in agreement. And now, the secret is not only Kody's, it is hers. If silence joins betrayal, is silence its own kind of betrayal? The leak spreads quickly into public view. Headlines seize it. The internet burns with fury. Fans who once sympathized with Robyn turn merciless, accusing her of complicity, accusing her of benefiting from betrayal and never speaking against it. She becomes the lightning rod, carrying blame for standing in the shadow of Kody's intent and never pulling away. The judgment is fierce and it drives her deeper into isolation. Christine, though pained anew, reacts differently. She speaks publicly in short, sharp words. We knew favoritism existed. Now everyone else knows too. The truth is ugly, but it's ours. Her conviction gains traction, spinning her role as survivor into strength. Janelle lends her voice too, telling reporters that this revelation proves fear was never the defense, only excuse. Her calm, steady clarity pierces through the storm. She doesn't gloat. She doesn't snarl. She simply confirms what has already been obvious far too long. But Meri shakes under the weight of it. For her, the new recording is one more shred of proof that she stayed too long, that her forgiveness was accepted and discarded without hesitation. She curls deeper into sorrow, her tears endless, her voice breaking whenever she tries to explain. For her, this latest revelation drains the last drops of denial she ever clung to. As for Robyn, she spirals. The recording loops endlessly online, her soft agreement frozen forever. The image of the protected wife is replaced in public perception with that of accomplice. She hides her face from cameras, blinds drawn tighter. Her isolation from the other wives now becomes public exile. For the first time, she is no longer shielded even by sympathy. She is condemned alongside him. Kody, meanwhile, retreats further into silence. Where once he defended himself with bluster and anger, now he says nothing. Neighbors report him pacing inside at night. Paparazzi camp outside his home, catching glimpses of a man thinner, paler, eyes hollow with sleeplessness. The verdict destroyed his image. The recording annihilates his final defense. When one secret finally emerges, isn't it the silence before it that hurts as much as the betrayal itself? The wives carry forward differently. Christine thrives, standing tall in interviews, turning her suffering into something useful for others. Janelle grows practical, focusing on stabilizing finances and keeping her children grounded. Meri lingers lost in sorrow, still unable to steady herself against the tidal wave of humiliation. Robyn isolates entirely, vanishing from public life, whispers lingering about arguments behind her closed doors with Kody. Some say she plans to leave. Others claim she clings tighter. No one knows for sure, because she will not speak, but the whispers don't stop. If there was one secret hidden all this time, what if there are more? More contracts, more recordings, more truths unspoken? The silence of the Browns that remains feels loaded, as if somewhere, another piece of betrayal waits to surface. People wonder how much of the real story will ever be told, and how much will remain buried under tissues, tears, and pride. And while the outside world devours leaks and interviews, the deeper question grows darker. Secrets don't destroy only marriages. They ripple through children, through friendships, through faith itself. Every person who once belonged to this family must now ask how much of their lives was based on illusion, and how much was stolen without consent. The Browns live scattered, reporters circling like vultures. Christine rises. Janelle steadies. Meri shatters quietly. Robyn trembles in silence. Kody walks hollow halls, his legacy bleeding into shame. The trial is over, yet the punishment has only begun. Because the aftermath does not belong to courts or contracts anymore. It belongs to memory, and memory never hands down acquittals. But one more revelation waits to erupt. Something no lawyer prepared for. Something not sealed by documents or whispered in recordings. It will come from someone else entirely. And when it surfaces, forgiveness or accountability will no longer be only family matters. It will belong to every voice that ever watched this story unfold. If the truth continues to unravel after the verdict, then does the trial ever truly end? The fourth day of trial begins with exhaustion written across every face. The gallery is quieter, not because interest has faded, but because the weight of yesterday still clings to the air. No one forgets the contract. No one forgets Kody admitting he prepared for collapse before it ever happened. The people file back in, their footsteps softer, like mourners entering a chapel. The wives sit apart from him now, a clear gulf across the room. Christine, Janelle, and Meri lean toward each other, bound not by victory, but by shared wounds. Robyn sits next to Kody still, but her body is angled away from his, tissues clutched tightly, a wall of grief between them. The judge calls for order. The gavel echoes again. It is time for closing arguments. The prosecutor rises first. He speaks carefully, each word sharp and deliberate. He tells the court the story in simple, brutal steps. Accounts drained, funds shifted, wives deceived, children hurt, outside witnesses confirming, and then the contract. Not hearsay, not speculation, hard proof. A plan written in ink. He holds the contract high for all to see, reminding the room that this wasn't about mistakes or forgetfulness. This was intent, to secure one wife above all others, to leave the rest vulnerable, to split a family that was built on equality and faith. His voice rises. This was not stewardship. This was betrayal. The gallery nods. Murmurs of agreement rumbling. For the wives, each word hits like validation after years of gaslit doubt. For Kody, it is the slow demolition of his last defense. The closing words of a trial never introduce new facts. They tell you how to feel about the ones already proven. The defense stands next, their voice strained, their pacing fast. They argue that everyone saw favoritism after the fact, that hindsight twists memories, that Kody was under impossible pressure. They claim the contract was emergency protection, nothing more. They plead that bitterness is dictating testimony, not truth. But the words ring hollow. Even as they speak, the image of the contract sits in every mind. The memory of the child's voice, trembling with pain, lingers heavier than rhetoric. Finally, Kody asks to speak directly. The judge hesitates, then allows him. He rises, his voice raw, stripped of bravado. He admits mistakes, admits failure. He says he never meant to harm his children. He says the contract was fear, not betrayal. That the wives never understood the burden he carried. But his words fall into silence. The courtroom doesn't applaud. The wives don't nod. Even Robyn doesn't defend him now. His voice echoes, but it feels small, out of sync with the weight of what's already broken. The judge calls for brief recess to deliberate. People stand, stretch stiff legs, whisper in corners. The Browns sit frozen. Kody hunched low, face buried in his hand. Christine stiff as steel, gaze fixed forward. Janelle calm but sharp, her jaw pulsing tight. Meri folding tissues between her fingers, silent tears rolling. And Robyn, a storm of shaking sobs, trembling like she'll collapse. When the judge returns, the silence is absolute. Everyone rises. The words strike clearly, firmly, with an echo that will ripple far beyond these walls. The court finds that Kody Brown knowingly misused family funds, concealed financial documents, and prioritized one wife with clear intent to secure her future over all others. His actions are declared misconduct, his defense is insufficient. Remedies will follow. The gavel lands for the last time. Judgment delivered. Verdicts are not endings. They are milestones. What comes after is often the harder road. The room erupts again. Reporters rush out. The gallery buzzes. The wives embrace one another, tightly, sobbing into each other's shoulders. Christine's arms around Janelle. Janelle's hand gripping Meri's back. Meri whispering words no one else can hear. Across the aisle, Robyn collapses into tears again, her whole body shaking. She tries to hold Kody's arm, but he pulls away, slumping forward, staring blankly at the table before him. The proud leader is gone. What remains is a hollow man suffocating in the wreckage of his own creation. Christine turns, steady but fiery, walking out with her head high. Janelle follows, calm but resolved. Meri lingers, glances back once, then turns away too. Robyn stays, clinging to tissues, unsure whether to leave or remain in place. And Kody. He doesn't move. The courthouse empties, voices spilling into the street. The verdict spreads instantly across headlines, through whispers, across every corner where fans once watched this family live under the illusion of unity. But now, there is no illusion left, only truth. What began as a marriage of faith ended as a trial of lies. What remains are shattered vows written not in scripture or ceremony, but in silence, tears, and contracts. And here at the end, the question doesn't rest with the judge anymore. It rests with you. If you were in this courtroom, if you heard the wives, the children, the friends, and even saw the contract itself, would you forgive him? Or is betrayal unforgivable once it has been signed in ink? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Because this verdict may be finished on paper, but the question of loyalty, trust, and broken family bonds belongs to all of us now.